UNLV Microcertificate Economics. Let's talk about consumers and their behavior. Economists believe that we're out there to maximize our happiness. We do not use the word happiness. We do not say consumers are out there to maximize their happiness. We use the word utility, and it comes from a long time ago from philosophers who were known as utilitarians. But we say that people are out there trying to maximize their utility. They're trying to make themselves as happy as they can be. And it seems logical, but we'll find out. So there's a problem with this. There's a couple problems with this. One problem is, how can we measure happiness? There's no such thing as a util meter. I can't plug in a machine or stick something on your finger and measure your happiness. If we could, that would be called cardinal utility. But that's impossible. Even a lot of times you know that person A is happier than person B, right? Person A is happy, person B is crying. You go, oh, A is happier than B. But you might be a fan of UNLV and we win the game and everybody is happy. But how do I really know who's happier than, yeah. So we theorize a lot like we're actually measuring utility, but in fact we can't. What we can do, we believe, is do something called ordinal utility, which means we can put things in order. So I can say I like Empire Strikes Back and Avengers Endgame. And those are 1 and 2 on my list. Can I say that I like Empire Strikes Back 1.73 times as much? No. But I can rank them. So I can take my 10 favorite movies and I can rank them. I can take my 10 favorite songs and I can rank them. That doesn't mean that my number 2 favorite song is, 1.232 times as good. I don't know. But I can rank things. We use ordinal utility. We use this fact that we can rank things. What that means, though, because we can't do cardinal utility, and we've talked about this once briefly before, is we can't make interpersonal utility comparisons. We can't compare individuals, how happy they are, how sad they are. We just can't compare, okay? If you've ever seen the movie Dr. Strangelove, we end up destroying the world because the Russian premier and the U.S. president can't agree on who's more upset. We can't measure utility. We can't compare people. And we talked about that once before. It means if I take from the rich and give to the poor, I can never prove that doing that made society better off. Okay? That's our friend Vilfredo Pareto. And we haven't found any way around that. Right? We can't decide who's the happiest, or if I take $5 from Bill Gates and give it to you, does that make Bill? No. Okay? All right, so in our economic world, we have these people called actors, and in fact, they don't have to be people. We've talked about government, and there's theory of bureaucrats and businesses and workers. We call those people actors. So when we talk about a consumer, that's an actor. When we talk about a worker at a factory, they're an actor. When we talk about businesses, they're actors. When we talk about government bureaucrats in an agency, they're actors. All actors are assumed to maximize something. So politicians, we believe, are out there maximizing their votes. Consumers are maximizing their happiness. Workers are trying to maximize how much money they can get for how little work they do. Or trying to maximize their enjoyment at work. Or, right, there's something. We're out there trying to maximize something. Now, for all this to work, there has to be a basic set of assumptions, and we have to meet those assumptions. Okay? So, the basic assumption that follows from this is what we call rational behavior. This is the economic definition of rational, not the psychologist's definition of rational. Okay? Our rational means you do what you think is best for you. So if you get up every morning, there's a famous guy who used to get up every morning in New York, and he would call a radio station and he would say some nonsense phrase into the phone. And every morning for 20 years, he called up the same radio station and he made exactly the same nonsense statement into the phone. Okay? And they actually met him and they talked to him. And he believed that his day at work would not go well unless he did that. Well, that doesn't make him crazy to an economist. That makes him rational. He's doing what he thinks is best for himself. Okay? And in our world, that generally means we're going to compare the marginal benefits of things to the marginal costs. In other words, supply and demand, right? That's how the world works, is supply and demand. We're going to compare the benefits and the costs and weighing those to figure out what we should do. Okay? Rational actors in our world also respond to incentives. So we believe that we can change the behavior of people by changing their taxes or changing the way a road goes, right? In Europe, gasoline taxes are often in most European countries, $3 a gallon, maybe even more. And gas is way more expensive than it is in the United States. How does that change behavior? It makes them drive smaller cars. It makes them take public transport. It makes them change how they do business. They ride the train. Okay? In the United States, even though we think gas is really expensive, it's actually really cheap compared to much of the world. And so we respond to that incentive by wanting to drive everywhere and not take public transit and not ride the train, and right? People respond to incentives. Businesses make us a deal and they send us an email and say, hey, sale is on and you got 2 days. Well, that's an incentive for you to go out and buy, right? People respond to incentives. All right, just some quick terminology. Anything that creates utility is called a good. So the love of your dog when you get home after work, that's a good. And, if you drink Coke or Pepsi and you like them, they're goods. Some goods are what we call economic goods. Economic goods are goods that are scarce. How do I know something is scarce? Well, it's scarce if somebody is willing to pay for it. So I may not think that Taylor Swift songs are scarce, and I might not be willing to pay for them, but I know there are lots of people out there who are paying for download or paying a streaming service, and then they're listening to Taylor Swift. That makes her song an economic good. Some people only drink Coke or only drink Pepsi. They drink it, well, that makes it an economic good. They're paying for it, right? People go to Costco to have the hot dog. It's an economic good. They're willing to pay for it. All right. So, again, how do we maximize? What do we do? We're trying to maximize our total utility. So we're trying to make ourselves as happy as we can be. And total utility, maybe I had, chicken and broccoli and a baked potato. I went to little steak place and I had the grilled chicken on the Barbie at Outback, and I ate chicken and I ate broccoli and I ate a baked potato and had some iced tea, and I got 250 utils. That's what would happen if we could actually measure utility. We would come up with some number like that, all right? Total utility is the end product. It doesn't tell me anything about how to maximize. It tells me the result. So economists rarely talk about total utility. What we talk about is margin utility. Margin utility is the change I get from consuming one more. So maybe I eat one slice of pizza and I get 100 utils for that. And the second slice of pizza, I had something to eat. I was starving. Now I've had something to eat. I'm not as hungry. The second one maybe only gives me 80. The third slice I probably could have skipped, but maybe I eat it anyhow and it only gives me 20. If someone forces me to eat that fourth slice, it might actually make me stuffed and draggy, and in fact, it ends up lowering my utility. Okay? And we believe that margin utility works this way, right? And just a reminder, my total utility, if I have one slice, it's 100. If I have two slices, it's 180. If I have three slices, it's 200. If I have that fourth slice, it's going to drop to 150. What matters is not my total utility, it's how much more utility I get from that. Okay? Normally, we expect that utility is going to go down. The margin utility is going to go down. My total utility is probably going up, but my margin utility is going down. The more I consume of any one thing, the less I like it. I go to Disneyland, I love it. The next time I go to Disneyland, maybe I don't enjoy it as much, and maybe my next vacation I go to Knott's Berry Farm. Okay? Utility declines as I consume more, right? And if you don't believe me, you go out on a hot summer day and you're outside and then you spend a couple hours in the sun and you're hot and sweaty. When you go in to your favorite pub and you get that first beverage is really good. Your second beverage is not as good. It's still probably good, but it's not as good. Your third beverage is If you have a 10th beverage, you're probably giving back the first 9, right? So that first beverage is wonderful. Each beverage you get gives you a little less utility, and at some point you actually start getting what we would call disutility, which is a negative from it, okay? And we call this diminishing marginal utility, and it's what drives the world. You would only eat your favorite food if there wasn't diminishing marginal utility. The reason you eat different things is you eat it in and out yesterday because that had high utility. Now the next day something else is going to have higher utility because another visit to In-N-Out has lower utility than it did yesterday, and that means there's probably somewhere else you want to go to eat today that has higher margin utility. Okay? It's margin utility, it's diminishing margin utility that makes life interesting. All right, so just very simple. This margin utility concept means we value things we want more of, not things we've had a lot of and had great in the past, but things we want more of. I don't want any more Taylor Swift. I don't value that. I want more Johnny Cash. I value that. Okay? Things we want more of. Why doesn't air have a lot of value to us? Why aren't we willing to pay for air? Because we don't want more of it. It's incredibly important to us. But we don't need more of it than we have, right? We value things we want more of. They're marginal utility, right? And this is how I know sometimes that a couple should not be together because they're together because of all the great times they had in the past, not because they're really looking forward to seeing more of each other, okay? More. It's what matters. More. Do I want to see more of you? Okay? So how do I find the optimal point? What should I actually consume? Let's do a simple example here. Suppose I'm spending all my money, and I sometimes go to Taco Bell and I sometimes go to Chipotle, and I get 10 utils for every $1 I spend at Taco Bell and 20 utils for every $1 I spend at Chipotle. And again, we can't actually measure this, right? But am I spending my money well? Well, no, I'm not. I get more utils for $1 at Chipotle than I get from $1 at Taco Bell. I should go to Chipotle more. And what will happen when I go to Chipotle more? Every time I go to Chipotle, that 20 number is going to get smaller. And because I'm going to Taco Bell less frequently, that number is going to get bigger. And they're going to do a Maren Morris and meet somewhere in the middle. Okay? Chipotle is going to go below 20, Taco Bell is going to go above 10, and at some point they're going to go together. So this idea that I'm looking at the margin utility, the additional utility of each more, helps me find that maximizing point, that optimizing point. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of math behind it, which we don't need to go through, but hopefully you get the logic of it. Okay? So I'm misallocating, and I need to shift some resources away from Taco Bell and toward Chipotle. Okay, so again, I'm going to compare the margin utility of everything I buy to the price. If I optimize, my optimum allocation will be to try to equate those margin utilities and prices. I want to get to that point where the marginal utility per dollar on things that I spend is about the same. And that will turn out mathematically to be the highest point of my total utility. Okay? Marginal utility per dollar, equal those out between each thing that I buy. That'll maximize my total utility. Okay? And we kind of already talked about this, the paradox of value. Diamonds are expensive because they're scarce. They're not necessary, but they're scarce. Water is not as expensive as diamonds, though it might be someday, because we have the water. And we can go to the tap and get water. It might not be good water, but we have all the water that we want, right? Water's not that scarce yet. All right. Just a note here that many economists in the modern world have tried to test whether people act the way standard economics says they do, and in fact we don't. And one of the early people to do this was this guy named Herb Simon. The importance of Herb Simon is twofold. Partly he's important because he started this idea that maybe people can't actually figure out what their best combination is. Called it bounded rationality. And the other important part is that his daughter babysitted me when I was a little kid. So maybe some Nobel Prize econ rubbed off on me. So these people who are into behavioral econ, and I'm into behavioral econ, I really do like it, point out that it costs money to optimize, to try to figure out what you need to do and go learn the stuff you need to do. We call that transaction costs. Do I want to drive somewhere and do I need to do research? Standard economics assumes you kind of already know what the right answer is. Well, we know that's not true. We know you have to spend time and money to figure out what the perfect answer is, and so you're rarely going to pick the perfect answer. You're going to follow a rule of thumb. I've been going to this grocery store. I like it. I'm going to keep going to it. Unless they give me some reason not to go there, I'm just going to keep going. It's a rule of thumb. We call technical word for that is a heuristic, where we follow some rule. I eat it, Burger Kings are always better than McDonald's. Or local places are always better, right? Whatever it is. Chipotle is always better than Taco Bell. Whatever it is, some rule that I follow. Okay, if I'm out of town, maybe I eat the salad and I don't trust the burger. You don't know, so you just have rules and you follow these rules and you live your life by your own unwritten set of rules. Okay? Just to give you an example of this, and maybe the best example, is that we know that people are what we call loss averse. And what that means is most of us hate to lose more than we enjoy winning. And human beings actually remember the bad stuff more easily than they remember the good stuff. And the theory is that, survival instinct from when we were being chased by tigers. And so you remember the time the tiger almost caught you, and you don't so much remember the time, and you learn from that. Anyway, we offer people a deal where we'll give them $100 or we'll give them a 50-50 chance to win $200. Those are the same, right? Statistically speaking, if we do 100 people of each one of those, on average, they're going to end up with $100. And then we take another group of people and we tell them, you have to pay us $100, but there's a 50-50 chance of you get to pay $0 or you have to pay $200, right? So you can walk into the room. The first group can walk in the room and say, give me $100. Or they can pick up a coin, flip the coin, and either get $0 or $200. The second group walks in. They have to pay $100. Or they can flip a coin and 50-50 chance of paying nothing or paying $200. Well, it turns out their behaviors are entirely different. Most people will take the sure $100 over the coin flip. On the other hand, most people will take the 50-50 chance if they have to pay, because the loss weighs more on us than we'd take advantage of the win. Okay? That means people aren't out there just purely maximizing, purely analyzing, purely there. Yeah. And it means that people don't do things that they should do, right? There's things that people, how many people do you know what? You know, I just should have done that a long time ago. My parents got offered to buy into the Xerox IPO. And if they had done that, I would be one little rich economist. But they were afraid of losing their money. Loss aversion hurts worse than, and they didn't do it. Okay? But wait. So, at various points, we'll touch on this as we get back through the rest of this course. And when we get to the, party on the day when we get you all together live, we'll play with some of this stuff.